Winter is the most stressful time for most garden and ornamental crops. Even species officially classified as hardy experience significant stress with alternating frosts, thaws, wet winds, and lack of snow cover. Preparing plants for winter is a set of measures aimed at preserving tissues, maintaining the viability of the root system, and preventing irreversible damage that may occur in spring in the form of freezing, vyprev, or weakened growth. In recent years, there has been increased climate instability. Winters become unpredictable. Temperatures can jump sharply from positive indicators to severe frosts. Snowfall can be replaced by a prolonged thaw, and stable snow cover is formed late or absent altogether. These features create additional difficulties for plants, especially for crops that require moderately stable conditions. In this regard, proper preparation of the garden for the winter period becomes an important component of plant care. Think about how carefully you usually prepare your plants for winter. Do you take into account the specific conditions of the site, the characteristics of a particular variety, the type of soil, the humidity level in autumn, and the predicted winter? A correct assessment of all factors and a systematic approach can significantly increase the chances of plants successfully surviving the cold season. When should I start sheltering plants? Many gardeners strive to cover plants as early as possible, believing that this will protect them from autumn frosts. However, premature shelter is a serious mistake. At positive temperatures, increased humidity is created under the covering material. The plant continues to actively breathe, vital processes remain high, and it does not enter the phase of biological dormancy. As a result, condensation accumulates, which leads to the evaporation of stems, the development of fungal lesions, and weakening of tissues. The optimal period for starting a shelter is considered to be the moment when a stable temperature of about -5 to -7 degrees is established. During this period, the soil partially freezes and the plant naturally enters the dormant phase. This reduces the likelihood of damage and prevents excessive humidification of the space under the shelter. It is important to remember that you should focus not on a fixed date in the calendar, but on the actual weather conditions of a particular region. In some areas, stable frosts arrive at the end of October. In others, only in November or early December. This approach makes it possible to adapt the shelter scheme to the actual climatic conditions and increase its effectiveness. Typical mistakes in winter plant shelter. Mistakes made when preparing plants for the cold season can lead to a weakening or death of the crop. Let's look at the most common ones. Mistake number 1. Using plastic wrap without ventilation. The completely sealed film does not allow air to pass through. A humid environment is created under it, which promotes the development of mold, fungi, and rotting of fabrics. The film also promotes the accumulation of condensate, which, when frozen and thawed, destroys buds and shoots. If necessary, the film can only be used as an additional outer layer to protect against rain, but with mandatory ventilation gaps. Mistake number 2. Excessively tight strapping of plants. A strong contraction of the crown leads to damage to the bark, makes it difficult for the plant to breathe, and increases the likelihood of branches breaking under the weight of wet snow. Proper strapping should be light and serve only to prevent the crown from disintegrating. Mistake number 3, covering with too warm materials. Warm fabrics, blankets, clothes, and thick rags create a thermos effect. They retain moisture, lead to condensation and evaporation. These materials are incompatible with plants and should not be used for shelter. Mistake number 4, using peat and sawdust at the base of the trunk. Peat and sawdust retain moisture and often lead to bark rotting. They can only be used as mulch, and they must leave a gap between the trunk and the material. Mistake number 5, trying to cover plants planted too late. With late planting, the root system does not have time to adapt. Such plants are particularly vulnerable to frosts, and shelter does not compensate for the lack of root formation. Suitable and unsuitable materials for shelter. The choice of materials plays a key role in successful wintering. Whatever type of plant is sheltered, it is important to use breathable and moisture-resistant materials. Suitable materials. Agrofiber of various densities. It provides ventilation, protects from wind, and stabilizes temperature. Lap neck. It creates an air layer, repels moisture, and partially protects against rodents. Burlap. It is suitable for winding tree trunks, prevents sunburn and mechanical damage. Snow. It is a natural heat insulator. With sufficient quantity, it provides optimal conditions for most crops. Materials that cannot be used. Thick plastic film, construction and garbage bags, dense fabrics, blankets, and old clothes. Straw without additional protection from rodents. Sawdust as a covering layer. Plants that require mandatory shelter. Some crops are sensitive to low temperatures and need additional protection. Tea hybrid roses, climbing and large flowered roses, young fruit trees, evergreen shrubs, boxwood, rhododendron, and laurel. These plants are susceptible to both freezing and winter burn. Plants that don't need to be covered. They differ in high winter hardiness. Hostas, peonies, irises, astilbe, currant, gooseberry, honeysuckle. Natural snow cover and mulch are enough for them. A practical guide to hiding roses. Carry out autumn sanitary pruning. Remove leaves and unripe shoots. Carry out hoeing with dry earth up to 30 centimeters. Install a frame for air-dry shelter. Cover with agrofiber of a density of 60 grams per m squared. Secure the edges securely. Fruit tree shelter. Whitewash the stamps. Protect the tree with mesh or burlap. Mulch the trunk circle. Avoid contact of mulch with bark. Shelter of conifer plants. Light tying of the crown to protect from snow. Shading with agrofiber of a density of 30 grams per m squared. Checking the shelter's condition in winter. Additional recommendations. It is necessary to take into account the type of soil, the relief of the site, the level of humidity, the intensity of precipitation, the direction of the wind, and the thickness of the snow cover. In areas with poor drainage, plants are more likely to suffer from evaporation. In non-windy areas, the risk of breaking branches increases. In regions with low snow winters, shelters should be strengthened, and in regions with heavy snowfall, basic measures are sufficient. Successful wintering of plants is the result of consistent and thoughtful preparation, meeting deadlines, choosing the right materials, taking into account the characteristics of specific crops, and regularly monitoring the condition of the shelter can significantly increase the hardiness of the garden. An integrated approach to winter preparation is the foundation for healthy and sustainable plant development in spring.